Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another episode of Wacky Wednesday, a weekly series where we explore wacky deck ideas in both standard and modern, and this week we're taking a look at a standard deck called Hadana's Hexproof, a deck built around the legendary enchantment Hadana's Climb, which at the beginning of combat puts a +1/+1 counter on one of our creatures, and then if that creature has 3 or more +1/+1 counters, we get to transform Hadana's Climb into the Winged Temple of Oraska, which can double a creature's power and toughness, while also giving it flying. And as the name implies, we're trying to combine Hadana's Climb with hexproof creatures, so we can safely put +1/+1 counters on them and then transform our Hadana's Climb to win the game. So let's take a look at our entire list, starting out with our 2-drops, where we have 4 copies of Cartouche of Knowledge, an aura that gives the enchanted creature +1/+1 and flying, and when the cartouche enters the battlefield we also get to draw a card, so it replaces itself. So the cartouche goes very well on our hexproof creatures and is kind of a plan B in case we don't find our Hadana's Climb, to make sure we have a flying hexproof creature to fly over any potential ground stall. And next up we have 4 copies of Silvergill Adept, a 2-mana 2/1 Merfolk that lets us draw a card when he enters a battlefield, but as an additional cost we have to reveal a Merfolk from our hand or pay 3 generic mana, but thankfully we have a lot of Merfolk in our deck, so most of the time we can play Silvergill Adept as a 2-mana 2/1 that draws a card, which is a pretty good deal as he helps us smooth out our draws and find our Hadana's Climb. Then we also have 4 copies of Merfolk Branchwalker, which also happens to be a Merfolk to help us out with Silvergill Adept, and the Branchwalker also helps us smooth out our draws thanks to the Explorer when she enters the battlefield. So we can take a look at the top card. If it's a land we can draw it, if it's a non-land card we get to put a +1/+1 counter on the Branchwalker and then decide whether or not to put it into our graveyard or keep it on top of our deck, and the +1/+1 counter also goes nicely with the Hadana's Climb in case we need to go all in on the Branchwalker. It kind of gives us a head start in transforming the Hadana's Climb. And the final 2-drop in the deck is Servant of the Conduit, which is part of a small energy sub-theme in the deck. Servant is a 2-mana 2/2 that gains 2 energy when she enters the battlefield, and at the cost of an energy we can use the Servant to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, helping us ramp into our 4-drops. Next up we have 4 copies of Jungleborn Pioneer, a 3-mana 2/2 Merfolk that creates a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token with Hexproof when it enters the battlefield, so that's our first Hexproof creature in the deck, and also happens to be a Merfolk to go with our Silvergill Adept. Next up we have 4 copies of Jadelight Ranger, another Merfolk, 3-mana 2/1 that has double Explore when she enters the battlefield, so can provide a lot of card advantage or can end up with a lot of +1/+1 counters, which is great with Hadana's Climb. And then of course we have 4 copies of Hadana's Climb. Even though it's legendary we always want to draw it, so we want to have 4 copies in the deck, and we can always transform one of them and then just play the other one as an enchantment and try to not transform it by putting the +1/+1 counters on various creatures. Then we get to our 4-drops where we have more hexproof creatures. 4 copies of Jade Guardian, which is a 4-mana 2/2 with hexproof that when it enters the battlefield we get to put a +1/+1 counter on target Merfolk we control, so we can just put the +1/+1 counter on itself, making it into a 4-mana 3/3 with hexproof that already has a +1/+1 counter for Hadana's Climb purposes. And last but not least, we have 4 copies of Bristling Hydra, a 4-mana 4/3 that gains 3 energy when it enters the battlefield, and we can spend 3 energy to give the Bristling Hydra a +1/+1 counter and give it hexproof until end of turn, so also combines very well with our Hadana's Climb. Then quickly going over the mana base, we have 4 copies of Aether Hub to go with our small energy sub-theme, 4 copies of Botanical Sanctum, which enters the battlefield untapped if it's one of our first 3 lands, then 6 forests, 7 islands, and then 3 Hashep Oasis, which we can also sacrifice to give one of our creatures +3/+3 until end of turn, which can also combine nicely with a Cartouche of Knowledge or Hadana's Climb. Then quickly going over the sideboard, we have 1 copy of Silent Gravestone as graveyard hate, 4 copies of Negate against control decks, 2 Deathgorge Scavenger as more graveyard hate, can also gain life against the red decks. We have 3 Thrashing Brontodon as artifact and enchantment removal, 2 Aethersphere Harvester as also a way to gain life against the aggressive decks, goes very well with our energy sub-theme, a Carnage Tyrant against control decks as an uncounterable threat, and 2 copies of Nissa, Steward of Elements to kind of diversify our threats a little bit, so also shines against control decks. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, and this hand looks okay. We've got our Silvergill plus another Merfolk, Cartouche of Knowledge so we can draw lots of extra cards. Looks like we're up against a blue-black, perhaps control deck. Drawing more lands isn't great. Let's lead with islands, say go. Alright, Glintsleeve Siphoner, so this is the mid-range version, and Hadana's Climb is a perfect draw here. So we'll go ahead and run out the Silvergill Adept, revealing the Jade Guardian. Draw a card, say go. And another Hadana's Climb, in case the first one maybe gets countered. So we'll take 2. Next turn the opponent can draw a card with the Siphoner. And our opponent with a Champion of Wits. So we will get to resolve our Hadana's Climb if we want to. Opponent discards Fatal Push and Supreme Will. Alright, another Jade Guardian to draw. So let's just play a Hadana's Climb. And say go, since we don't really want to trade the Adept for the Champion of Wits. And then next turn we get to play Jade Guardian, and we kind of get to decide where to put the +1/+1 counter. Probably just on itself, since that's a lot safer. Opponent does get in there, so we could actually trade with the Champion of Wits, just to keep it off our back and make it so we don't take too much damage early on. But we also don't want to put any creatures in the graveyard, since the Scarab God is an issue. So I think we'll take it for now, since next turn we'll have a Jade Guardian that can block the Champion of Wits profitably. And our opponent's just gonna main phase a Vraska's Contempt to play around any potential Blossoming defense, which makes sense. So here we just get to play out our Jade Guardian and put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So the Hadana's Climb pretty close to transforming. Next turn we could go Jadelight Ranger plus Cartouche, or we can just activate the Winged Temple of Vraska to get in there for 10. I guess we can also play the Cartouche and activate Temple. So despite our opponents curving out very nicely here, we might still be able to win this one. And yeah, I think I'll block the Champion of Wits here. Not too many things that can go wrong, and we don't want to get outraced. Opponent probably has a Scarab God and wants to get the Champion of Wits back from their graveyard. Instead, just a Gonti Lord of Luxury, which would normally be a problem if it weren't for our flying from Cartouche and Hadana's Climb. So our opponent gets to take a look at our top 4 cards. What's the best they can find? Maybe a Bristling Hydra. I guess a Cartouche of Knowledge would also be pretty annoying, since they can give the Gonti flying. So here I think we do want to activate the Winged Temple, and then we probably just also play the Cartouche to get in for more damage, since we don't have any other 2-drops. So let's play the Cartouche. Draw a card, put another counter on the Jade Guardian, transform Hadana's Climb into Winged Temple, activate, and get in for 12. So our opponent should be dead next turn if they can't interact. Opponent falls to 8 to draw an extra card with the Siphoner. Another Champion of Wits. Not sure what they can draw into to help them here. And the opponent hasn't played a land yet, so I guess Field of Ruin, if they have that, could save them. But we have the second Hadana's Climb, so it's not actually gonna work. And right, our opponent scoops it up. So that's game 1, won against blue-black mid-range. How do we want to sideboard? I don't think we change much, to be honest. What is our opponent gonna bring in? Perhaps some Duresses and Negates to take the Hadana's Climb, but we only have the Hadana's Climb and Cartouche as non-creature spells, so I don't think we want to sideboard too much here. Carnage Tyrant isn't great if they have some Death Touch creatures. Nissa gets pressured by random 2/1s. Harvester could be okay, but also just gets killed by Vraska's Contempt. Not too many targets for the Brontodon or the Scavenger. I guess the Scavenger can clean up graveyards for the Scarab God. Same with the Gravestone, but I think we want to only bring in Gravestone if they also have Gearhulks, which I guess our opponent does, but only a handful. There's a few cards we could bring in, but I kind of like our main deck configuration, so I'm not gonna change too much. And this opening hand looks okay. Don't have the Hadana's Climb, so it's gonna be a bit more difficult this time, but we do have Servant into a hexproof creature and then a Cartouche, which can also get there. Alright, there's the Hadana's Climb. Let's see how this game progresses. Duress, alright, that's well-timed Duress. So that's gonna take the Hadana's Climb, but we still have Hexproof creature plus Cartouche. Let's run out the Servant. If our opponent keeps up 3 mana next turn, alright, never mind. So the Servant gets pushed, so we don't have the option of Jade Guardian next turn, so it's just gonna be the Pioneer instead. Let's see if the opponent has some creatures here. Nope, opponent just passes. And Jadelight Ranger is a nice one, so given that we have Jade Guardian as another hexproof creature, I don't mind getting the Pioneer countered here. I would rather resolve the Jadelight Ranger. Alright, Pioneer resolves. Not the most threatening card. Opponent did nothing with 3 mana. Now they have the Field of Runes, so they do have Hadana's Climb covered. Although we can still get 1 activation from the Winged Temple. So here I think we start by attacking. And then we have to decide between Jade Guardian and Jadelight Ranger. If we were going to play the Jade Guardian, we could have also played it pre-combat to put a counter on the Merfolk token. I think we just play the Ranger here. Resolves. Finds another Jadelight Ranger. It's probably an okay draw here, although it doesn't match up very well against the Scarab God. So we might actually want to find more Cartouches or Hadana's Climbs at this point. So I think I'll put it in the graveyard, even though putting it in the graveyard is also not great against the Scarab God. I think we put it in the graveyard, and then we drew Hashep Oasis, and then we get to play Sanctum, say go. And Vraska's Contempt takes it out. So by putting the other Ranger in the graveyard, we ended up drawing a card, which I guess is nice. Is this 5 mana Scarab God? It is. Alright, so we're not in a great spot here. I think we just play Jade Guardian, put the counter on itself. And then pass a turn. Opponent does not activate Scarab God yet. An attack for 5. I think we take it for now. Opponent could have a Torrential Gearhulk here, or just a random counter spell for the Cartouche, but I think we start by taking 5. So let's untap. Island a draw, let's lead with Cartouche. Resolves. And Bristling Hydra is not a bad one. I think just attack with the Jade Guardian, although I guess if our opponent has Torrential Gearhulk on Vraska's Contempt, they would get to block the Pioneer anyways, and it's also the only legal target. So I guess we can afford to attack with the Pioneer and the Jade Guardian. I'll leave the Merfolk token back to block. And we kind of want the opponent to flash in a Gearhulk here, since then they don't get to Vraska's Contempt the Bristling Hydra with the energy trigger on the stack. Instead they just get back Jadelight Ranger, which I guess also works. But now they're tapped out and we can probably resolve the Bristling Hydra, unless they have Essence Scatter. So that's 1 giant Jadelight Ranger. Opponent puts both in the graveyard. And they're blocking, takes 4, down to 15, and then second main will play the Bristling Hydra. Don't want to run out the Hashep Oasis since our opponent has Field of Runes, so we want to kind of save the Hashep Oasis until we use it. So we get the 3 energy, the Hydra can get Hexproof now, and now it's kind of a race, but with the Scarab God, our opponent can probably outrace us unless we find the Hadana's Climb soon. Opponent gets back the Jungleborn Pioneer. There's also a Glintsleeve Siphoner in the graveyard. And of course we can't forget the Drain mode on the Scarab God, because why not? So here we could chump the Ranger and trade for the Scarab God, forcing the opponent to replay it. But I think our best draw probably includes another Cartouche of Knowledge or Hadana's Climb. So I don't want to give up the Bristling Hydra quite yet. So I'm just gonna chump and then take 5. Alright, another Bristling Hydra. So I think we're only getting in for 4 here. And then we'll run out the Hydra. I guess we can play around Supreme Will here. So we should probably play the island first. Opponent does have a lot of power and toughness. Unless we can top deck something, the Jade Guardian is not gonna be able to close out next turn. Do still have the Hashep Oasis. Champion of Wits. So I think our out is another Cartouche of Knowledge on one of our Hydras. So if possible, we should try to keep one alive, but that's probably unlikely. Alright, our opponent sends those. So we have to block the 6-power creature for sure, so that's a chum block. And then I think we block the Pioneer and double activate to keep our Hydra alive. Of course, we lose to Vraska's Contempt on our Hydra, even if we do top deck the Cartouche. But there's not much we can do about that. So this way we fall to 1. Let's block like this, and then activate the Hydra. Let it resolve first before using it a second time. And then we need to top deck Cartouche, and our opponent can't have a Vraska's Contempt or another instant speed removal spell for the Hydra. That's on tap. Alright, we did not find a Cartouche, so we can use the Hashep Oasis to get in for 7. But that's not gonna do it. Guess our opponent can forget to block. Looks like our opponent had the Vraska's Contempt anyways. Oh no, I see. They're just getting back a Bristling Hydra with the Scarab God, which would not have beaten a Cartouche of Knowledge here. So we did have an out, despite our opponent racking us with the Scarab God. Maybe shouldn't have attacked that one turn with the Jungleborn Pioneer. Let's go to a game 3 here. Do we want to change anything? I'm looking at this Aethersphere Harvester, which sounds like a good plan as another evasive creature to fly over, gain some life back perhaps, but it does match up very poorly against a Vraska's Contempt, and it also makes the opponent's duress better. So I think we just try again. Jungleborn Pioneer is not the best threat, but it does block the Siphoner at least, so yeah, I think we just try again and hope to resolve Hadana's Climb. Would like to be on the play. This hand is missing green mana, and without it, this hand's not really functional. It's kind of a shame because we do have Cartouche plus Hexproof creature, but we'll go to 6. And alright, we'll keep this one and put that on the bottom. Island go, turn 2 Servants, at least provide some energy for our Aether Hub, since we do need double green for the Ranger. Another Servant is not the worst. Gets Fatal pushed once again. No play from the opponents. Our only play is Servant. Could get Essence Scattered. It does not. Instead our opponent cycles a Fetid Pools. And a tapped Fetid Pools is a play. Alright, Botanical Sanctum lets us play some more stuff here. Could play the Jade Guardian here, which actually sounds pretty good. And even if they do have the Essence Scatter, we have another one. And they do. Our other play would have been Jadelight Ranger, attack for 2, but I don't think that 2 damage matters too much here. Opponent taps out for Gonti. Hopefully that doesn't find Hadana's Climb or Cartouche, so we can still fly over the Death Toucher. And Islands means we don't have to waste energy this turn. Put the counter on itself, say go. Would have been more mana efficient to go Ranger plus Cartouche, but we don't want to put the Cartouche on a non-hexproof creature. And there's a Scarab God once again. Alright, time to draw Hadana's Climb. Just a forest, so let's run out a Jadelight Ranger. Bristling Hydra I don't think is good enough here. It's not great that we're putting all these creatures in the graveyard for Scarab God. And we drew Hashep Oasis. Let's put a Cartouche on the Jade Guardian and try to erase here. Alright, another Cartouche is not bad. Get in for 4. Opponent will get back the Bristling Hydra, it looks like. Hashep Oasis and Cartouche. That's a nice bit of extra damage, but we still need to find something here to have a chance at winning the race. We could double block the Scarab God if it attacks here, just to buy some time. Make the opponent replay it. That could be okay here. So yeah, I think we do block. We kind of get owned by a Fatal Push, but so be it. So our opponent gets back the Scarab God end of turn. And a second Field of Ruin. and our opponent adds a Glintsleaf Siphoner to the board, which combined with Bristling Hydra makes for a nice team. Alright, let's play the Cartouche. Alright, there's Hadana's Climb, so that gives us a chance. Don't want to expose the Hashep Oasis here. Get in for 6, and then next turn we can both use the Hashep Oasis, I think, and use the Winged Temple, so that should be lethal. And even just a Winged Temple by itself should be enough. Opponent gets in for 8. We still don't know what their card from Gonti is, but as long as it's not a Cartouche, we should be okay here. And we've already played 2, so the chances are pretty small. Commits, bouncing or Hadana's Climb, yep. But we still have the Hashep Oasis. And Merfolk Branchwalker. Alright, so Hashep Oasis might be winning us a game here. And I'm glad we kept it in hand to protect it from Field of Ruin. And we drew another Hadana's Climb anyways. Use Hashep Oasis. And Hadana's Climb for the overkill. Attack for 10. And that does it, sweet. Managed to beat blue-black midrange onto the next one. Alright, we're on the play, and this hand looks pretty good. Bit heavy on the creatures and don't have any of our Cartouches or Hadana's Climbs, but with Silvergill and Branchwalker we have some redraws. So let's lead with Sanctum, say go. And turn 2 I think we just play the Adept. Opponent also with blue-green. Could be the Merfolk Mirror in a way. Let's play the Silvergill, revealing the Branchwalker. Draw a card. Alright, Bristling Hydra. And yep, there's a Deeproot Elite, so we are up against classic Merfolk. And Forestier is a decent draw, so here we can play the Pioneer after attacking for 2. Although maybe it's correct to just play a Branchwalker, even though it's less mana efficient, just because it's so important for us to find Cartouche or Hadana's Climb to be able to fly over. Since the Jungleborn Pioneer is probably not gonna get to do a whole lot this game. So yeah, I can actually buy that, since it is very important to find our Cartouche or Hadana's Climb in this situation. And yeah, there's Cartouche, so we'll keep that on top. Say go. Next turn play the Bristling Hydra, and then Cartouche that up. Kumena's not bad. So that provides a nice blocker for Branchwalker and Silvergill. But now we get to resolve the Hydra and have 3 energy. So we even have protection in case our opponent does have an unsummon. So we'll pass. Next turn we can go Cartouche plus Branchwalker. And we have to hope our opponent doesn't have too many Lords, since we don't have any removal spells for them. Water Trap Weaver. Alright, is that gonna force us to use the Hexproof on the Hydra? Nope, it's just gonna tap down the Branchwalker. Alright, that's good. So that probably means they don't have a second piece of interaction for the Hydra. So their opponent might just draw a card with Kumena end of turn. Jadelight Ranger is interesting. Think we lead with Cartouche here and then play the Branchwalker. Could also lead with Branchwalker and then play Cartouche. But if we draw another Cartouche, I want to play it right now. And if we draw land, we can just play the Jadelight Ranger. Instead another Bristling Hydra. Let's play Branchwalker. Guess we could have attacked first to deny some info. And Aether Hub. Alright, that's an extra energy. Could be relevant if we draw Servant. And let's attack for 5 in the air. Not gonna use the Hexproof mode yet. Even though using the ability now would make it a 3-turn clock. But I'm sure that between the Bristling Hydra and the Hashep Oasis, it's gonna be a 3-turn clock anyways. So might as well play it safe in case of an unsummon. Opponent's gonna draw a card. So we're really all in on this Hydra. And then hopefully our other ground creatures can stall long enough. Silvergill Adept revealing Mist-Cloaked Herald. So that's the unblockable 1/1. That's fine. Opponent could start activating Kumena's third ability to put +1/+1 counters on all their creatures, and that way they might be able to outrace us. And Deep-Root Elite is also doing overtime here. There's a Herald. And the Deep-Root Elite puts the +1 counter on the Herald. And another one. So now our opponent has quite the unblockable force between the two Heralds and the Kumena. So it's gonna be a tight one here. Although I guess we do have a 2-turn clock here with our Hydra. Can just hit for 6 and then still have protection. So let's use the ability, attack for 6 in the air. Play another Hydra, so we still have 3 energy. And then next turn we can use the Hashep Oasis for the win. Opponent's gonna draw a card rather than power up the team. So they might be looking for unsummons or Water Trap Weavers. And our opponent sees the Hashep Oasis on the board, but they don't know we have a second Hydra to ensure another activation. So now the opponent needs 2 pieces of interaction and one of them has to be at instant speed. Branchwalker does not interact with the Bristling Hydra, and I don't think our opponent can deal 20 here. Silvergill Adept goes to the graveyard. Opponent draws a card, so this is desperation mode. Speaker doesn't do it, so now our opponent specifically needs double unsummon, I think, to get out of this. And even then, I guess we can just play Bristling Hydra, have another activation instead of having to go for Hashep Oasis, although I guess that amounts to the same since we're forced to use one of the Hydra activations to get up to 7 damage. So I don't think there's a difference between playing the Hydra for the extra Hexproof activation or using the Hashep Oasis. I guess by using the Hashep Oasis we lose a land, so we might as well play the Hydra. And if our opponent has an Acid Scatter here, they're dead. Alright, our opponent goes for unsummon. So they'll need a second one. Let's see if they do. Alright, they don't. Oof, that was a close one against Merfolk. How do we want to sideboard? Again, I don't think we want to sideboard much in this matchup. It's pretty much a race. I could see Harvester being okay. Opponent hasn't seen the Hadana's climb, but they can probably assume we have it. So yeah, pretty much the 2 Harvesters. What do we take out? Perhaps the Jungleborn Pioneer, just because the body is not super relevant. And we don't really want to go all in on the 1/1 Hexproof token, since that's gonna take longer to kill our opponent as opposed to Jade Guardian or Bristling Hydra. And this hand's not great, and not having a Merfolk for the Silvergill just makes this an easy mulligan, I think. Alright, this hand has a lot of 4-drops, but it does have kind of the pieces we need. The Hexproof creatures and then a Cartouche. And I don't think we can mulligan to 5 here, so let's keep and hope to find some islands on top. Servant also works, can help us speed up and even play a 4-drop on turn 3 if we find a land afterwards. Opponent with a turn 1 Kumena Speaker, so the opponent off to a quicker start than last game, and they are also on the play, so they might be able to outrace us this time. Forest go. Turn 2 Merfolk Mistbinder, so opponent gets in for 3. So this is not the start we wanted to see from our opponent. Jungleborn Pioneer, not the most impactful. Although I guess it does provide some chump blockers. So worst case scenario here would be another Merfolk Mistbinder, I suppose. Instead just a Mistcloaked Herald. They also have Hashep Oasis, which is going to be relevant here with the Herald. Opponent attacks with the Mistbinder, that's surprising, so they might have a River Herald's Boon here, or a Blossoming Defense. We can't really afford to give up the Servant is a problem, so I think we'll just have to take it, even though I would have liked to trade with the Mistbinder. Alright, I guess our play now is Jadelight Ranger, to try and hit land drops. And we're pretty much bottoming anything that's not a land. So I guess that means we pretty much bottom anything, since we would draw the land. So Branchwalker graveyard, and another Ranger graveyard. So not the best reveals, as we're desperately looking for lands, but I guess we did put a 4/3 in play which can block the Mistbinder, and our opponent's missing blue mana, so they can't actually play Unsummon if they have it. Another Herald, And yep, opponent just gets in with those two. Think we block the speaker if our opponent does have River Herald's Boon, which they may have represented last turn. Blocking the Kumena speaker is kind of a disaster, but I don't think we can afford to take 5 and then be facing 4 power of unblockable creatures. So if they have it, then they have it. And instead it's just a Blossoming Defense, which is kind of the same. At least speaker still a 3/3 and not a 5/5. And just an Aethersphere Harvester to draw, which does very little since we wouldn't be able to crew it on defense. So could play the Cartouche to get a redraw, but are we really playing a Cartouche on a Servant? And then we're still facing 4 power of unblockable creatures. I don't think we can still win this game. So probably don't want to show the Harvester to the opponent. So let's just play the Pioneer and say go. Land number 4, so now they can also use the Hashep Oasis. Yep, so they can hit us for 7 points of unblockable damage, and there's no way we can recover here, so we might as well concede to save some time. And our opponent doesn't need to show us any more cards since we're dead on board. Alright, so how do we change after sideboard? Don't think we change anything. So let's try again, hope to hit our land drops. And now that we're on the play, we might be faster. Alright, this looks good. Servants for acceleration, and then Harvester for life gain and evasion. Silvergill Adept is tempting, but I think we want to run out the Servant first. And then if we find a land next turn, we can go Silvergill plus Servant. Opponent with a Branchwalker, so no longer interested in attacking here, reveals Hashep Oasis. And Jadelight Ranger to draw. Can only play 1 card unless we try to gamble on the Silvergill Adepts to find us a land. Think I want to just play a Ranger, try to hit land drops. Bottom the Servants. And bottom the Jade Guardian. So we're left with a pretty big Ranger, but no lands. Deeproot Elite. And an interesting attack here, strongly representing Blossoming Defense. The problem with blocking here, even though the Blossoming Defense would still trade, is that our opponent gets to use their mana very efficiently. There's no other green 1-drop besides Kumena Speaker that they can play here. So I don't think this is the turn where we want to force the Blossoming Defense. So still missing lands, so we could play the second Ranger. Think we start by attacking with the Ranger. Opponent could still go for the Blossoming Defense, but the Elite is a lot more valuable than a Branchwalker, so opponent takes it. I think we still go for the Ranger here. If we play a Branchwalker or Silvergill and there's a land on top, we also get to play a Servant this turn, which is pretty valuable. But we do have 2 looks with a Ranger just to ensure 1 land. So I think I'm going to go with the less greedy play. That's more likely to find us a land. Cartouche is also pretty tempting here, but if our opponent has Unsummon or Water Trap Weaver, we kind of get owned since we don't have any hexproof creatures, so I think we once again need to put that in a graveyard. Look for lands, and alright, we found the Botanical Sanctum luckily. Say go. And we're left with Jadelight Ranger, which matches up a bit awkwardly with the Branchwalker since we can't block. We can still block the Elite and force Blossoming Defense, which would still trade, so at least we have that going for us. If our opponent puts a +1 counter on the Elite, Blossoming Defense would save it. Instead they have a Kumena, still keeping up that 1 green mana, and they're putting the counter on Kumena itself. Now they want to draw a card, and Bristling Hydra is a draw, so playing a Harvester might actually be okay since we're missing the Hadana Climb or Cartouche. The other option would be Servant into Silvergill. Think we go with the Aethersphere here. And say go. And this also provides energy for the Servant for whatever that's worth. And just a 3/5 life-linking flyer with all the energy we still have in hand could be pretty good here. Certainly better than the Jungleborn Pioneer would have been here. So opponent draws a card, but they are stuck on 1 island, so their interaction is limited. And another Deeproot Elite. Puts a counter on the Branchwalker. And Adapt, revealing another Kumena. 2 Deeproot triggers. And there's a forest representing Blossoming Defense. Let's see if our opponent makes an attack. They don't. Alright, let's untap. Find another Jadelight Ranger. We have 4 mana available thanks to the Servant. Feel like we want to play the Branchwalker and the Adept here. And I'm gonna lead with the Branchwalker. Although I guess by playing the Adept first we can just reveal the Branchwalker to hide some information. Alright, Cartouche we definitely want, so let's put that on top. And then I guess we're not playing the Cartouche this turn, so we might as well play the Servant here instead of the Silvergill, and then still get in with the Harvester. And then Crew, using the Servant, which is not gonna get involved in combat here. And I think I will use the lifelink right away, since we have plenty of energy thanks to our Hydra. So opponent falls to 12, we're at 21, and the race is on. Opponent knows about the Cartouche that we kept on top, so they might want to try and race here. And indeed our opponent goes for the +1/+1 counters, trying to race us here, and still only 1 blue mana. And they're going to use it on the Silvergill. Alright, so we have to keep the Blossoming Defense in mind. Branchwalker. And our opponent sends in the team, and we probably suspect a Blossoming Defense, so it's going to be difficult to make good blocks here. So Jadelight in front of Branchwalker I think makes sense, and then we'll put Branchwalker in front of Adept, and then we're taking a total of 13. It's probably fine, so they get to save their Branchwalker with the Blossoming Defense, and we go from there. Alright, so no Blossoming Defense, interesting. We untap, find a Cartouche, 5 mana at our disposal, so we can go Jadelight plus Cartouche, but then we're mostly tapped out. Or we can go Silvergill plus Cartouche, keep a Servant back to maybe Crew the Harvester. Can definitely lead with the Cartouche since that's kind of a forced play at this point. So we draw a card. Aether Hub is not bad, gives us a few more options. I think we still go with the Silvergill instead of the Jadelight Ranger here, just to keep more blockers back, since this is going to be decided in 2 attacks. If they have interaction for the Ranger, we die. Let's reveal the Jadelight Ranger. Find Hadana's Climb. Alright, so that changes things a little bit, I suppose, although we won't be able to transform it anytime soon. So let's Crew the Harvester using the Servants. Get in for 7, gain 3. And we have 2 blockers back, which are hopefully enough to keep us alive here. Mist-Cloaked Herald, using their only blue mana, but they do get 2 Deeproot Elite triggers, and they might just be able to use Hashep Oasis for the win here by making Kumena unblockable. Yep, I think that's what's going to happen here. So our opponent can just use Hashep Oasis on Kumena, make it unblockable by tapping the Herald, attack with everyone, and that's just about lethal. Stumbled a bit on lands in the second game and the third game. We also weren't super fast out of the gate and never really got to assemble Hadana's Climb. And I guess our opponent is just going for the Blossoming Defense skill, showing that they did after all have it in hand. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, and this hand is missing a second land, otherwise it would have been quite good. And alright, we'll keep this. We've got our 2 combo pieces, just need some of the glue to keep this together. Second Jade Guardian is tempting in case we're up against a control deck. We want a second creature with Hexproof, but we kind of want to find a play before turn 4 that affects the board, so let's bottom that. We also need to find a 4th land still. Up against the Blooming Marsh, so it could be the Sultai deck. And turn 2 Seeker Squire, so never mind, could perhaps be an Explorer based deck, revealing Winding Constrictor. Opponent's gonna keep that one on top, so that's a pretty scary card. And Silvergill's not bad here. Reveal Jade Guardian. Try to hit our land drops instead of Servant, so if we miss on a land we can still play the Servant next turn. So there's Winding Constrictor. Opponent gets in for 2. I'll take it. And another Silvergill to draw. So we could gamble by playing the Silvergill here and try to find a land that way. The problem with playing Servant is that our opponent might just have a Fatal Push, then we don't end up having 4 mana. So I think we kind of want to gamble here, since we're going to need that land at some point. Hope to find a land here. Alright, perfect. And we get to play the Servant. Say go. And then we have to decide what to play first, the Hexproof creature or the Hadana's Climb. Probably the Bristling Hydra here, although we'll see. Journey to Eternity. Alright. Opponent gets in with both. We could just triple block the Seeker Squire here. Although our opponent does get to kill 2 Silvergills here, which is kind of bad. So maybe it's better not to block at all and attack back for a bunch. And our opponent did have the Fatal Push, so triple blocking would have resulted in losing all our creatures. Play Aether Hub, attack with everyone, and now we even have double Bristling Hydra activation, which is nice. So next turn we get to play Hadana's Climb, and we could already transform it if we wanted to, but we're probably going to play it safe and wait a turn. So these Hadana's Climbs are going to be pretty good here at winning the race. I think I'll just take 2 from the Constrictor. Don't want to give the opponent an extra land, and 2 damage is not the end of the world here. And Emperor's Vanguard, so that also indicates a strong Explorer theme. It's on tap, so here we can deal 14 damage to our opponent. That probably seems worth it. So let's play Hadana's Climb. Double activate the Hydra. Go to combat, put a 3rd counter on it. And use the Winged Temple. So our opponent gets the opportunity to kill the Hydra next turn, but they'll be at a pretty low life total, and then we should be able to finish off our opponent with the Silvergills. And our opponent scoops it up. Alright, on to sideboarding against a green-black Explorer, presumably. Don't think we want a ton of sideboard cards here. Our main deck is set up pretty well. Perhaps we want 2 Harvesters here. I could see bringing in the Harvester over maybe the Pioneer, just to add some more evasion. This hand is missing blue mana, but any 3rd land unlocks Jadelight Ranger, which is likely to find us more lands. And we're on the draw, so I think this is a keep. Just having Hadana's Climb in your opener is a very good reason to keep. Alright, perfect. Never didn't have it. So we're looking at a turn 3 Jadelight Ranger, most likely, or we could just curve Pioneer into Hadana's Climb, which is also reasonable. Turn 2 Seeker Squire, reveals a Swamp. Alright, it's also a good draw. Don't really need it for mana acceleration purposes, although it does let us play the Jade Guardian next turn, which is a little better than the Jungleborn Pioneer, since we get a bigger body to put the counters onto with the Hadana's Climb. But it's not the end of the world if the Servant dies here. Winding Constrictor, no attacks. Alright, so we will play the Jade Guardian here. Put the counter on itself and say go. Opponent has their own Jadelight Ranger, which is pretty scary with Winding Constrictor. Opponent reveals Path of Discovery and puts 4 counters on the Jadelight Ranger. Island is a good draw, so now we get to play Silvergill plus Hadana's Climb. So let's lead with Silvergill, revealing Jadelight Ranger, draw a card, and then play Hadana's Climb. Put the counter on the Jade Guardian, and then we just have to worry about this giant Jadelight Ranger from the opponent, but if Hadana's Climb transforms, we should be in okay shape. But our opponent has a Naturalize to destroy Hadana's Climb, So now we're in a bit of trouble. Jadelight gets in there. I think for now we take it. We'll have better blocks next turn. Untap, Cartouche of Knowledge, that's a good one as well. So I think we lead with Cartouche. Alright, a second Naturalize, we still get to draw a card. So can still make a decent attack with the Jade Guardian here. And our opponent's tapped out of green, so we don't need to worry about Blossoming Defense. So now we still have an evasive threat to attack with. And some energy to gain life. So we're not forced to block the Ranger yet. Path of Discovery. Ranger gets in there, so we could try to block with Servant and Harvester, but if our opponent has Fatal Push, that's kind of a disaster. So I think we once again just take it. Untap. Hydra is not bad, so we can Jadelight plus Hydra. Let's lead with Jadelight. Branchwalker can go to the graveyard, and Hadana's Climb can stay on top. And we'll run out the Hydra. Get 3 energy, crew the Harvester with the Silvergill, and get in for 7. Opponent might start jumping here. And I'll use the lifelink mode. Opponent takes it, they're at 9, we're at 11, and with a Bristling Hydra on defense that can get Hexproof, we should be pretty safe. Second Winding Constrictor, alright, that's pretty scary. But Hadana's Climb should be able to close out the game next turn, unless the opponent has a third Naturalize. Wildgrowth Walker, so now they're tapped out of Naturalize effects. Path of Discovery does gain them a bunch of life back here, but it should not gain enough, and we have more than 12 in the air next turn. Opponent gets in for 6, we'll take it. And now we can kind of choose which creature to put the counters onto. Could put it on the Jadelight Ranger, but we might as well put it on the Jade Guardian. Make sure to crew the Harvester. And move to combat. Use the Winged Temple. Could have also used the Winged Temple on something else besides the Jade Guardian. Could have used it on a Bristling Hydra, for example. But here it works out fine. And there's no card for 1 mana that can interact here, I think. And our opponent's dead. Awesome. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this gameplay. And as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for supporting the channel, and you can do so yourself as well over at patreon.com/LegenVD, where you get cool rewards for supporting the channel, as well as getting us closer to our goals, where with every goal reached, we will release an additional weekly series. So if you want to see more content, Patreon is the place to go.